You must earn the right to be able to connect with somebody's network.
I see that all the time on LinkedIn is that there's differences. You get that follow notification, then sometimes you get on a daily basis spammed with the connection request notifications as well. That's what it boils down to at the end of the day. A lot of people relate sales, they hear that to leaves a bad taste in their mouth, but good salespeople, people that have good ethics, are trying to grow true businesses. It's all about helping at the end of the day.
What I would say to anybody coming in brand new, if you're looking at doing sales and selling, your number one asset to be able to get into someone's office is through the referral.
The Modern Selling Podcast.
Hello. Welcome to Tech Ascend, the podcast where we dive into the trends, strategies, and success stories that are reshaping the tech landscape as we know it today. I'm your host, Oliver Klingane. I'm also the founder of Ascension, the premier business development partner within tech. Today, we're joined by Mario Martinez Jr., the founder and CEO of Vengresso. Mario, welcome to the show.
Oliver, I'm excited to be here with you. Thank you so much, my friend, for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Would you mind telling the audience a little about yourself and what you do with Vengresso?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a 27-year sales, marketing, and executive leader. Spent pretty much about 19 years, I think the number is. Let me just do the math here. 18 years in executive world. And then I started my own company about 9 years ago. 1 year later, after starting my own company as a social selling training company for sales prospecting, I did a 7-way company merger. And that was probably the hardest thing I ever did in business. With that in mind, I used to have a hair that started right about here, and it used to be all black about 8 years ago when I did that merger. But nonetheless, we formed Vengresso, and it was an amazing opportunity for what we brought to market. In fact, we formed the largest digital sales prospecting training company globally. Our claim to fame was when the world's largest sales training company by the name of Miller Heiman Sales Training decided to hire for the first time in their 43-year history an outside sales training company, and that was Vengresso. And we taught them everything around the pre-hello to the hello, whereas Miller Heiman was from the hello to the close. So phenomenal there. Excuse me. And then we released a piece of software called FlyMSG, FlyMSG. And we decided to convert the company from a service-based company to a software-based company. And as a direct result of converting it into a software-based company, we subsequently went to market, raised funds there out in the market. And that was that was the hardest thing I ever did in the market, in my career, trying to raise funds in a downward economy in 2022, 2023, and a portion of 2024. With that in mind, I used to have hair right in the back of my head right there. And as a result of raising funds, that's when the bald spot developed from that area. But FlyMSG actually, for us, is a sales productivity and engagement technology. It serves two markets, one, the sales and marketing space, and that's our sales-led growth motion. And then it serves the product-led growth motion, which is pretty much to every Tom, Dick, and Harry you could possibly think of that sits behind a computer that does repeatable-based messaging. And some of the new features we'll be launching around messaging and writing, like what we call Fly Grammar, which will directly compete against products like Grammarly, as an example, that we bundled in. And so we'll be further extending our ties into the knowledge worker space.
Nice. Making some big moves. And Mario, there's a lot to pick apart there. I guess we can start. You come with a big background in sales and marketing. When you made that leap to start your own company 9 years ago, what kind of drove that?
Well, it actually happened by accident. So, truth be told, I was a speaker at LinkedIn's annual users conference in 2015. In fact, if you searched Mario Martinez and LinkedIn on YouTube, you'll find my videos still there on the LinkedIn YouTube video collection and our video collection as well. And the reason why I spoke there was because I was a VP of sales where we had launched a social selling training program and video sales training program, the two of them combined, to our 350 sellers at the technology company that I was working at then. And it was the most popular and effective program then, and still to this date. It is the only program ever that LinkedIn has ever rolled out that had a 100% rep adoption, and 100% of the reps attributed at least one sales opportunity in a 6-month window to the sales pipeline. It never was repeated after that, and I do hold the record for that particular title. And so I stood up in front of their room, in front of thousands of their customers, and taught everyone how to go about implementing a program that we had implemented to drive the success that we had driven. About 3 months later, the company that I was with decided to do a round of layoffs, and the company I came from prior to, when I started, they had 80,000 employees. When I left, there were 40,000 employees. I had personally laid off enough people in my career that I never wanted to do it again, so I took the package. And as a result, I wrote a blog the day after on January 5th, 2016. And after writing that blog, within 4 days, a Fortune 100 company reached out to me, the head of worldwide sales operations, and said, "Hey, since you're out of a job, why don't you come and do some consulting work for us on social selling?" 5 days after that, another Fortune 100 company said, "Hey, I was there in the audience. I would love to be able to chat with you." And within 3 weeks after that, I had 2 signed contracts from 2 different Fortune 100s. And that's how I started my company, was totally on accident. Subsequently, after that, what was interesting was I decided that it was too small of an opportunity, and I wanted to be able to scale that much larger. And so a year after that is when I decided to do a 7-way company merger to collectively form the largest digital sales prospecting training company. So that was a really interesting mission and evolution there. In addition to that, I also achieved some cool accolades and statuses along the way, like a sales and marketing influencer hired by some of the world's top companies like Korn Ferry, as an example, which is a $3 billion public recruiting firm, to be able to do evangelizing and marketing work for them in terms of influencer status. And so that was a really cool opportunity as well that I gained in the marketplace. So that having been said, that was kind of the evolution of how I started the company, and not what triggered FlyMSG, however.
No, very cool, very cool. And I'm a big believer on everything happens for a reason. So from layoffs to where you are now, it's a interesting journey. But like I said, it all seems to work itself out. And Mario, I love talking sales with people. You obviously have a extensive background in it. But let's say you're talking to somebody fresh. They've never sold a thing in their life. From A to Z, how you turn them into a master closer?
Well, our focus here at Vingresso has always been the pre-hello to the hello, and then from the hello to the close. That's every other training company that's out there: Miller Hyman, Medic, Sandler, everybody else, Value Selling Associates. We are primarily focused on the hardest part. In fact, this part right here, if you, in our last research study that we went out to the market with, which was 1,295 respondents across the globe, we asked them what was the hardest part about selling, and we gave them 4 options. Was it getting the first conversation? Was it qualifying the opportunity? Was it getting a proposal out? Or was it closing a deal? 70% of all respondents, and this is the 4th study that we did, 70% of all respondents said getting, excuse me, that first conversation was the hardest part of the sales cycle. 70%. So interesting, we spend only 30% of our time here and 70% of our time in the hello to close, but 70% of the work is actually centered right here on that 30%. And so right now it's gotten really difficult to be able to capture a buyer's attention and to be able to get a response from them. What I would say to anybody coming in brand new, if you're looking at doing sales and selling, your number one asset to be able to get into someone's office is through the referral. In fact, 82% of all buyers start their buying process with a referral, meaning the CX or VP of or director of, they turn around and they call the other director of, the other VP, the other CIO of different companies and say, "Hey, we're looking at who did you use? How did you solve this problem?" And that's where they get the referral. So if a buyer is starting with the referral process, why wouldn't the seller start with the referral process? And you know, Oliver, the number one mistake that I see when I walk into a sales organization on their cadences, the number one mistake that I see is the fact that they did not start with the referral. Meaning, look at the mutual connections. Look at your team link connections if you're using Sales Navigator as an example from within your company. and see who's got a relationship with the target customer that you're going after. That is the number one error that I see in every single sequence that I look at. And I rarely ever see that as the first step in the process. The second step, actually, interesting enough, in a cadence, is also the second largest mistake. And that is that following somebody on LinkedIn, presuming that they have a LinkedIn profile. You know, what's interesting about this is most people don't realize this, that when I click follow on a LinkedIn profile, not save in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, but follow, what it actually does is it actually sends you, that buyer, a notification through your personal email that I have followed you. Now, let's think about this for a moment here. The notification that comes in shows my pretty face, and it shows my headline and title on the notification. And then it says, click here to learn more about this person. And you can click and go into that person's profile. So let's think about this particular element. Vengreso.com is an extremely strong domain. Companies like Oracle and Salesforce, they come to us and ask for backlinks. Amazing. I still today do not have 100% deliverability into anyone's email box, even with the domain strength of Vengreso.com. But LinkedIn.com has a 100% deliverability rate. 100%. There are no spam filters today that block at LinkedIn.com. Zero. So if I click follow and LinkedIn's going to send an email to that particular target prospect telling them that I followed them and into their email, oh my God, why would I not utilize that channel to be able to send an email to their personal email address or company email address, whichever one, that has my face with my headline that speaks to who I help, how I help, and the business problem I solve. And that's that headline right there that comes along. And so those are the two biggest mistakes that I see sales organizations, business owners make, is that they don't, number one, follow that target buyer at the beginning of their cadence, and two, start with a referral. Now, you won't always get a referral. You may not know somebody that knows that individual, but gosh darn it, if you do know somebody that knows that person, that's where you want to start with.
Mm-hmm. And Mario, with that, just for clarification, is there a difference between sending a LinkedIn connection request and a LinkedIn follow, or are those in the same bucket?
Totally different, actually. So a follow is I'm following you as an interested party. And so what LinkedIn does is they actually send you a notification that somebody is interested in following you on LinkedIn. A connection request is totally different in that you are accepting whether or not I should be added to your personal network. And that's probably the fourth largest mistake that I see people make on LinkedIn specifically, is the fact that they are reaching out to connect with a target buyer without having earned the right to be able to connect. And that is a huge mishap and error. In fact, most sales cadences that I see have the LinkedIn connection request somewhere between step 3 and step 7, which is the wrong place to put it in any cadence, because now today more than ever, buyers are definitely not open to connecting with sellers just because you send a blind connection request or a personalized connection request. You must earn the right to be able to connect with somebody's network.
Awesome. No, 100%. Because I see that all the time on LinkedIn is there's differences. You get that follow notification, and sometimes you get on a daily basis spammed with the connection request notifications as well. There's a fine difference, I'm sure. And Mario, you come from a background of sales and marketing. Said it goes back 27 years. You're obviously very knowledgeable now. What was it like when you were just getting started? How did you grow? What skills were you trying to learn at the beginning of the game?
That's a great story. The skills that I learned then are very similar to what I would encourage people now. So interestingly enough, I started my career at 19 years old selling in the software industry. We were doing EDI software, electronic data interchange, for the AS400, Unix, and mainframe. Interestingly enough, that is old school technology, really old school technology on that particular platform. And I started when I was 19 as a telemarketer, and now called SDR or BDR. And in that process, I really focus in on a something that I learned in retail, which was my career prior to that. And so the story goes back to when I started at 16, 17 years old working for Ritz Camera Centers. And at Ritz Camera Centers, people who are old enough know what that is. In the old days, we used to take our 35 millimeter film. When we put it into our cameras, we would take pictures. We would take it to a shop to go and develop our pictures. We'd get our 4x6s of all of our photos. And when I was 18 years old, I got accepted into UC Berkeley. And so I applied for a transfer to the Berkeley store, which was sitting right at the mouth of the University of UC Berkeley. And Hunter Anderson came in and he said he wanted to talk to me. Now, I was a lab technician. A lab technician was an individual that took your negatives, processed your film, and printed it with the cyan, magenta colors on there. And I would print out the pictures, and then I would hand them off to the customers. Because we were a small store, we had a lab role and we had a retail sales role. So we were a combo, whereas many other stores were retail versus lab. You had two different roles. And so Hunter Anderson came in and he said he wanted to talk to me about the transfer request that I made to the Berkeley store. He pulled out his binder, and back then he used to have these big binders with all the sales reporting, and it was to print out on those perforated pages with the 90 different dots on the end, and he would put it into a binder that would be that you would hold all those little binder papers there. And so he was flipping through his pages, and he got to one of the pages, and he's like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about this." And he showed me some stats that showed that I was one of the top sales performers in the whole region for, in this case, was that first year, but the stats went back for a couple years. And I was always somehow in the top 3, top 5 in terms of sales performers across the whole district. And he says, so I'm trying to figure out, like, what are you doing? How did this happen? Now, I didn't understand what he was asking. And I was perplexed, and I'm like, I don't understand. What do you mean? How did I do this? How did I do what? And he's like, you have the same amount of sales as some of our top producing stores out in Rockridge and in Berkeley that are full-time sales associates. What are you doing? And at first I thought, is he accusing me of stealing? Like, I didn't know where this was coming from. And I said to him, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Are you asking me whether or not I did something wrong? And so he says, no, not at all. I want to know, how are you making all these sales? And I said, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand. And I didn't know where he was driving at. And he says, okay. Why don't you tell me what you do when a customer comes in? How are you making all these camera sales? What's your process look like? And he goes, take me back from this time that you print the photos. And I'm like, okay. And so our process was, you would print photos, you throw it into a box, and then when they come, you open up the box and show them pictures and say, are these your pictures? Customer would say yes, and you put the lid back on, and then you bring it up. But what actually I was doing is every time we printed photos, I would pull out the bad photos, put them on the top, and then put the good photos on the bottom. The reason for that is because customers inevitably always came back to our store and said, oh, these pictures are not printed right. They're blurry, they're fuzzy, you fill in the blank. And so I learned this at the very beginning was to put this at the top, because if you did, you can address that right there, and you wouldn't have to do retakes and reprinting negatives, which was very difficult, because once you process the negative, they came in these little strips, and then you'd have to put one by one by one in the machine, as opposed to one big long roll where you can just drag it all the way across this big long negative strip. So what I did was I would put all the bad ones at the top. Then they would come in, and I open up the pictures, and I say, hey, are these yours? Inevitably, what every person would say is, oh no, the pictures of Johnny playing soccer didn't come out. They're blurry. And I would say, yeah, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, this is not the printing. This is actually your camera. And they say, what do you mean it's my camera? And I would say, well, what type of camera are you using to be able to take these types of pictures? Subsequently, they would tell me, and I would say, are you planning on continuing these types of pictures? Johnny at soccer, Johnny at baseball. They'd be like, yeah, absolutely. I said, well, then you have the wrong equipment. And so I'm the guy wearing the white lab coat. So they trust me because I'm the guy that is not the retail guy, the salesperson. I'm the lab coat guy. And so they would say, yeah, I plan on it. I said, well, you have the wrong equipment. They said, well, what should I have? And I said, if you're going to take pictures like this, you need a camera that has at least this type of shutter speed, at least this type of film speed, at least. And I would film. They say, well, how much does that cost? And I would say, well, there's a couple options. You can either have this one, which is, the $400 one, or you can go this one, which is a $1,000 one. Oh my God, $1,000. Do you have anything in between? Yeah, here's the $600 one. And so then they would say, okay, well, that's not too bad. They would end up buying that. And then I would say, hey, do you need a camera case for this? Oh, yeah. Do you have one? Yeah, let me take you. And here's the one that would fit this. Oh, do you have the film? No. What type of film? Well, if you're going to take speed pictures like this, you need this type of film. And then, oh, by the way, do you have the battery? You probably want this working as soon as you walk out, right? Yeah. So we would sell the batteries. And then I would turn around and I would be ringing it up and I say, oh, by the way, we have a warranty. No. Well, but before you say no, let me just tell you, because I'm the tech guy and I see this happen all the time. We have a unlimited, no questions asked, drop it and you break it, bring it in pieces, we'll replace it for you for free, which is unique in the industry for the warranty. I highly recommend it if you have kids or if you're going to be standing on the bleachers or inside of the, a stadium. And they would say, how much is it? And I'd say, oh, it's an extra $99, whatever, something like that. And then, okay, add it on. So I would do this process, and inevitably I would sell camera equipment all the time. And so Hunter looks at me and says, so you know what you were doing, right? And I said, no. He goes, basically what you're telling me is you were just helping customers. And I said, yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So he says, well, I have good news and I have bad news. What do you want first? And I said, well, I'm always the bad news guy type first. I said, bad news. He said, unfortunately, I can't approve your transfer to Berkeley as a photo finisher. And I just melted. Now, the reason why I melted was because if you know a little history and heard any of my podcasts, when I applied to UC Berkeley, my family was a poor family. We didn't have enough money. And so I only had $41 to be able to apply to a college. Each UC application at that time cost $40 per application. So I wrote a check for $40 out of $41 and went and applied to UC Berkeley. I applied to one school and one school only because that's all the money I had. I got in. So when he told me that I was not going to be able to be transferred, I just melted. The reason was because I needed to work to pay for my way through my first year and my second year through college. And I said to him, I was like, what do you mean you can't approve this? Like, I need this. I need to be able to work. I am depending on this to be able to get to and pay for UC Berkeley. I was like, you have to, please. And he says, well, you didn't hear the good news. And I was like, okay, what's the good news? And he goes, I can't approve you as a photo finisher, but I can approve you as a sales associate. Because you, my friend, understand the art of helping a customer. And that's what sales is all about. And so I was like, what? And he goes, and you get $1.25 more per hour. This was like big thing back then, $1.25 more per hour. And on top of that, your spiffs and your incentives and your commissions are double that what you make if you were a lab tech. And I was like, what? Yes, this is great. So it's funny to go full circle. Salesforce produced a movie about 7 years ago, 2019. And the movie was called The Story of Sales. It's the first ever sales documentary produced about the sales industry. And they invited 20 influencers from around the globe, sales influencers, and I happen to be one of those 20 influencers that they selected. My famous line inside that movie was when Mark Benioff introduced my portion of the video at the sales keynote that he was giving at Dreamforce, and it was my face of my video, and the famous line is, sales is the art of helping. And that came from Mr. Hunter Anderson. I have probably passed away by now because he was in his 60s back then. But Mr. Hunter Anderson gave me and helped me understand what I was doing was just innate inside of me. And that was helping a customer through a process. And if you can focus in on helping, figuring out what the problem is, trying to apply a solution to the problem, then everything else it follows through just by focusing on learning to help a customer.
Mario, that was a masterclass. Just a true masterclass. Sales is truly just the art of helping. That's what it boils down to at the end of the day. A lot of people relate sales, they hear that to leaves a bad taste in their mouth, but good salespeople, people that have good ethics, are trying to grow true businesses. It's all about helping at the end of the day.
That's exactly right. And that's essentially how we built FlyMessage as well. And FlyMessage as a productivity tool and a sales engagement tool. And it was centered around solving a specific problem that sellers and business owners did. And that was they would have repeatable based messaging that they would put into a Word doc, Google Doc, notebook, Notepad, Google Keep, draft email, and they would go and hunt and peck for these messages they'd use over and over and over again. And so as a direct result, we just said, well, why don't we just put all these messages into the cloud, and wherever you go online, you can build it out with the shortcut. And that was the original version of FlyMessage. Since then, it is now we've now added on multiple products, including FlyPost. That's the ability for a seller to be able to write a social media post. Our time motion study showed that it took 32 minutes on average to write a social media post. Now with FlyPost AI, which is a feature underneath FlyMessage, it literally takes 2 minutes. 2 minutes. And you could even grab a blog URL or a YouTube video. We'll read the blog, we'll watch the video, and then we'll write a whole social post about it for you. But here's the best part: in your voice, with your persona. In addition to that, we also realized for salespeople that when they're looking to engage with a target buyer, on average, it took 6 to 12 minutes to write a LinkedIn comment on someone's post. And that started from the moment that I went to someone's profile, read through all of their posts, decided which one I was going to pick to comment on, then stared at the comment screen, then tried to type a comment, and I didn't know what to say. And so as a direct result, what individuals can now do using FlyEngage AI is that they can have us write the comment for them, and then they go in and edit that particular comment as they see fit. And that's the beauty behind FlyEngage. And then we have, of course, our Fly Learning. That was centered around really helping sellers to learn how to prospect better so they can sell more, and teaching them how to engage on LinkedIn, how to write messaging, as well as very specifically how to do video sales prospecting. And so we launched Fly Learning, which is 15 hours of on-demand sales prospecting content that teaches you all those things. And then we give you the tools like FlyMessage, FlyPost, FlyEngage to be able to help you scale those activities.
Very cool. Very cool. Mario, as we begin to wrap up here, staying on theme, what's the future hold for FlyMessage? You guys have built some great products. Let's flash forward a year. What do you want to see happen?
Well, in a year from now, my prediction is we'll be acquired by someone as part of the portfolio of a larger sales tool. I'm a big believer that if you look at the big companies like ZoomInfo, Gong, Seismic, Apollo as an example, their strategy has always been centered around an X and 1 strategy. An X and 1 strategy is X number of products in one. So 5 in 1, 6 in 1, 7 in 1 as an example. And the reason for that is because an individual needs to use one product that goes through an entire workflow. And that's where the focus needs to be at. And so as you look at FlyMessage, we'll be releasing 3 new products, in the next 45 days. That includes Fly Grammar. So we'll be directly competing against companies like Grammarly. If you think about Grammarly, great platform. Grammarly has been very successful in what they are doing, but they're a one-trick pony. That's what they are. Sentence, grammar, punctuation, spelling, and now they're trying to do, AI rewrite, which is great. But it is not the entire workflow of what a seller goes through. What a seller goes through in terms of being able to write content is not just correcting punctuation, spelling, and grammar. And it's not just rewriting what it is you've written. Thus, the reason to have text expansion, which is our FlyMessage Text Expander product. Thus, the reason to have posts. Thus, the reason to have commenting. And then when you look at that, now you've got to be able to really teach you how to utilize these tools correctly, because a fool with a tool is still a fool. So that's where our Fly Learning comes into play. where we're going to teach you all the right skills, then give you all the tools to be able to help you scale those individual activities. So I'm a believer that, yes, we need to help you write everywhere online, no matter what the use case is. And then we want to make sure that whatever it is that you're rewriting or you're editing, that we're going through and correcting spelling, punctuation, and grammar. And then on top of that, we're releasing what's called Fly Roleplay. Vengresso has always been, for the last 8 years, focused on the digital aspects of prospecting. And now for the first time, we'll be coming to market to focus in on the cold call. And here's one of the biggest challenges: business owners, sales reps, and BDRs and SDRs. What they have done is they are calling 100 people to get 5 people live. Those 5 people that they talk to, they're practicing with. That is ruining our opportunity to be able to really get more appointments. And so we'll be releasing Fly Roleplay, which is the ability to be able to talk to your Flybot and build a persona. And as a result, you have 15 different personalities: the pessimist, the optimist, you fill in the blank. And you'll be able to have a live conversation, and we'll grade you, score you, and transcribe that conversation for you so that it shows you where you need improvement at and how you can go about improving your ability to have a conversation and book that first meeting. So that'll be the cold call. So that will be entering in. And then, of course, FlyWrite, which is the AI sentence rewrite and the ability to be able to use AI within FlyMSG so that you can actually help you write your templatized messages. And then a whole slew of other products that will be coming right down the pipe as well.
Very cool. You guys are making some big moves, and it sounds like what you guys are doing with FlyMSG across the board, Fly everything across the board. You guys are making some very strong plays. I love to hear it.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And really, the entire product is called FlyMSG. The features have their individual names, like FlyPost, FlyEngage, FlyRoleplay. But when you purchase FlyMSG, you will have the ability to use every single product. Now, we may throttle you back in each one of those product categories. And based upon your need, you may have a need to have more grammar or more sentence rewrite or more role plays or all of them. And so in either case, we will essentially drive that up and allow an individual to be able to utilize the products, what they need, and they still have access to everything else, and buy the appropriate plan that will give them the full throttle access to that particular feature.
Very cool. Very cool. And Mario, we can wrap it up now, but you've had a great story. You're building a great platform, great company. I love to hear it. Where can the people find you so they can look into it as well?
Hey, you can go to flymsg.ai or .io, either one, flymsg.ai or .io. Type that in there, look us up. It's free to try. You go ahead and try it. No credit card collected, so go have at it. And in addition to that, you could also find me on LinkedIn. If you are going to reach out to connect with me, make sure you say that you heard me with Oliver on this Tech Ascent podcast so that I know where you came from.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you, Mario. And for everybody listening, I'll be sure to tag Mario and FlyMSG down in the description so you guys can go check him out. But Mario, thank you one last time. Thank you for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Please do me a huge favor and give the Modern Selling Podcast a 5-star rating and a review on iTunes. Oh, and don't forget, if you'd like to save 20 hours or more in a month and increase your productivity, go right now and download FlyMSG, that's FlyMSG.io for free. It's your free text expander and personal writing assistant. Hey, thanks for listening in, and until the next episode, good selling.
Watch out.